Elige... Elige una subtítulos, lenguaje español. Elige un idioma para los subtítulos y el texto en pantalla español. Confirmar. A ver, confirmar. ¿Jugaste Stanley Parable alguna vez? No. Ajusta la barra deslizante hasta que la computadora se vea apenas visible. Ya está. Introduce la hora actual. Son las 8:19. No te puedes acceder a la configuración de actividades del menú principal. Dice, estás jugando Stanley Parable, configuración, general, campo de visión, si la cámara, invertir, idioma, español, sonido, video, resolución, alta, controles, adelante, saltar, interactuar adicional, agacharse, caminar automáticamente. Bien. Iniciar partida. Vamos a ver de qué va. No sé, nunca lo he jugado, nunca he
This is the
visto.
story of a man named Stanley.
A ver de qué
Stanley
va.
worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard.
Soy yo.
Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
O sea, se supone que tengo que hacer todo eso, ¿no? Ok. Aquí es donde empieza lo que se supone que es el
All of his
juego.
co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
O sea, estoy haciendo lo que me está diciendo el presentador. 424, 420, 422, 418. Ah, mira.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Hay dos puertas. ¿Por qué habría de ir a la izquierda? ¿Hacemos caso o no hacemos caso? Al chile no va a hacer caso. Hagámosle caso, pues. No, no. ¡Ah!
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
This food coworker. Pues ya no puedo. Ah, mira, puedo subir.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ni él no quiero.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine.
We'll be fine.
I am okay.
I am okay. No. Aparecí igual en el mismo lugar.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Ay, no me digas.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
La sala de reuniones. Volvieron a encender. Vámonos de regreso a la sala de reuniones. Se supone que... ¿Aquí
When
es?
Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Aquí está la sala de reuniones.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Ahorita vamos.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Baño ejecutivo, aquí no es. Esta es la oficina del jefe.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
¿Cuál era el código? 2485.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
2845. ¿Y cómo lo borro?
2845.
2845. Ahí está ya.
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
¿Cuál pasadizo? ¿Este? Ah, no, aquí está.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Okay.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Obvio que sí. Tú puedes, Stanley, tú puedes.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature
A la
revealed.
verga.
Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Despedido, despedido. Despedido. Eso no sé qué signifique.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Status offline dice. Esperando. System power on off. Y al final terminé haciendo todo lo que me dijo.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over?
No creo.
Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Was happy. Okay.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Y apago las computadoras. Ah, mira.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
A su izquierda. Nel.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Dice, no mientas, si tú estás mintiendo, detente. Ahora. No brinques de... Ajá, sí.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
Te lo pido por ella. ¿Quién?
This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
¿Será que me pasa algo si me aviento? Mejor no. Oh.
That's her, Stanley.
No.
You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
¿Su madre tal vez? No puedo. No me deja contestar el teléfono. No me deja, ¿qué pedo? Al fin. ¿Y de ahí?
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Ahora.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Qué desgraciado.
Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Ah, ¿cómo así, hijo de perra? ¿No que era mi historia? Maldito cerdo. ¿Tú qué quieres, perra?
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
¡No! Buen día, empleado 427. Oprime tu teclado.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
Chale.
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
Ah, qué dolor.
And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
Joder, perra.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Dios.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
4:22. ¿No puedo abrir puertas?
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Excelente. I hate Monday, soy yo.
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Vamos a la izquierda, vamos a la derecha. Vamos a la derecha.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow. Yes, this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room. Thank goodness Stanley had taken this detour on his way to the meeting room. Life without... But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Hacia izquierda.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Hey.
But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here it's, left.
Izquierda.
Oh, no. No, it's to the right, ma'am.
Ah, qué hijo de perra, yo quiero ir a la izquierda. Me voy a quedar aquí hasta que ver si cambia.
No, no,
Hijo
no,
de
not the right.
perra.
Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute?
Ah, no mames.
Now, let's see. We went down right, left, down, left, right. Yep, okay, yes. I've got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
Esta historia. Aquí está el control mental.
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. Quick, Stanley, close your eyes. Okay. We just have to get back to, oh, who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. The whole story completely unusable. How about, rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, hmm? Okay, from the top.
Ah, qué hijo de perra.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ay, cambió de... ¿Cambió, no? Esta ya no está encendida, esta tampoco. Esta sí. ¿Alguna puerta se puede abrir? ¿Cómo? Hay más puertas.
Wait, what? No, I restarted. I swear, I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Oh, did something... Stanley, did you change anything when we were back in that room with all the monitors? Did you move the story somewhere, or... Hold on. Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere. Okay, then. It's an adventure. Come, Stanley. Let's find the story.
No mames. No puedo ir por acá. Bueno, vamos por aquí. No, por aquí. Es la misma, ¿no? Eso me recuerda a los backrooms. Y me dio un escalofrío ahora.
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game
No
again?
digas eso. Quiero
Well,
ver
I
qué
find
más
it
hay.
unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot.
No,
Why not?
maldito. Ah. Es más, este es mi lugar, ¿no? 427.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Aquí ya no hay
Stanley
computadora.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
¿Esa puerta no estaba abierta? Apaguemos esto. Ah, no, sí, siempre ha estado abierta. Y ya no hay puertas, ¿qué pedo?
Okay, yep, it's worse. I might be remembering this wrong. It's possible the story is back where we just came from. Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
Ah, ¿y qué hice ahí? Aquí ya... ¿Toqué? No.
Aha! I knew we'd missed something. The story. Here it comes.
¿Y esto por qué no
No,
es...?
wait, never mind. Not the story. Okay, let's head back the other way
Hijo
and
de
retrace
perra.
our steps.
Ni tú sabes que... ¡Ah! ¡Qué miedo!
Now this... Well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so.
No
I
sé.
can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you remember, Stanley?
Pues sí, tonto.
Do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how about this? You win!
¡Excelente!
Congratulations!
¡Ey!
I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off, so good job.
¿Y ahora?
No, I don't feel right about this at all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay, I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time, I have to restart.
Hijo de perro. Están de
All
para
right, I've got a solution. This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
Ok, sigamos. ¡Ey! ¡Ey, ey! Eso no estaba antes. ¿Voy? No, mejor voy por allá atrás. Pero es que quiero ir allá.
No, I'm down. We're leaving it up to the line from now on.
Bueno, ya voy. Dios mío. Esta no se puede apagar.
You see? The line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination
Pues sí, ¿no?
still a story? Simply by the act of moving forward,
Obvio.
are we implying a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature of life itself? Okay, Stanley, I need to follow this train of thought for a minute. Just stick with me. Now we can both agree that the nature of existence is in fact a byproduct of one's subjective experience of that existence, right? Okay, now if my experience of your existence rests inside of your subjective experience of this office, is this office in fact the skeleton of my own relative experiential mental subjective construct? Whoa. Hang on. That got a bit weird back there. Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what? I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
Ay, perro. Ya cállate. No mames, es sin terminar.
Cut the music.
Al
Go back
fin.
and look at that fern.
¿Qué le echo? Ah.
Stanley, this fern will be very important later in the story. Make sure you study it closely and
Okay.
remember it carefully. You won't want to miss anything.
Ok, ya lo vi, ya vámonos. Hasta que se acabe la jodida música.
Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell?
Quisiera ir por todos los lados. No, aquí no. Es aquí. A ver, es que llega. ¡Ey! Aquí inicié, ¿qué pedo? O sea que donde estaba yendo es la línea real. Aquí es donde se abrió. Bueno, al final de cuentas sí era acá, así que da igual.
Oh, no, not again. Line, how could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you... Oh, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
Excelente.
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure line. What's it ever done for us? We're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction?
Pero si ya deambulé, ¿qué más? Oh.
Now, yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you want our story to be? Go wild. Use your imagination. Whatever it might be, Stanley, I'm ready for it.
Y vamos a llegar al inicio seguro.
Oh, no, not you again. Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it, and we should be fine.
Ahorita si no quieres que la siga.
Ah, a choice. We get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control. How important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute. Okay, so I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere at the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct one.
No iremos.
Another victory for logic. Come, Stanley, our destiny awaits.
Yo quería que me pusiera la nueva puerta. ¿Cómo? Desvíate a la sala de mantenimiento, llega a la sala de monitores, el narrador reinicia la partida de primer inicio. Descubre que la edición de las dos puertas ahora tiene muchas más puertas adicionales, camina sin rumbo, el narrador reinicia la partida. La oficina no tiene salida, a la vuelta encuentra otro camino sin salida, llega a otro edificio, el narrador reinicia la partida. Línea de aventura, música y filosofía sin sentido, vuelve a la oficina, vuelve a la sala de monitores. Entra en un territorio inexplorado, vuelve a encontrar la línea. Encuentra el cronograma del final de la confusión, el narrador reinicia la partida. El narrador se olvida de los inicios anteriores. ¿Has jugado al final de la confusión durante 18 minutos? Stanley intenta jugar la historia, pero no se le permite, no puede ir a ninguna parte ni hacer nada. La partida se reinicia sola. Vuelve a encontrar la línea, empieza a seguir la línea, encuentra una réplica idéntica de la oficina que se empieza a deteriorar. Intenta inventar una historia de aquí. El narrador reinicia la partida, séptimo reinicio, ya no hay oficina, solo un espacio negro, deambula por la oscuridad, encuentra una librería, búrrate y vete. El narrador se ha ido, después de mucho tiempo, Stanley muere.
Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined?
Qué desgraciados.
So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing.
No.
Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do
Eso
it.
es
I
todo.
won't do it.
No lo hagas.
And the timer stopped? Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle? The, whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen? So, okay. I guess now we just wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story, wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination.
Así
So
dicen.
I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime...
A la verga.
Someone was following Stanley. He was sure of it. If he checked over his shoulder now, he would surely catch them. It was only a matter of time.
¿Por encima del hombro? ¿A qué se refiere? O sea, ¿que de verdad me siguen? Ahí está la línea.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ya crucé la de la izquierda. Dice que si miro por encima del hombro me podría dar cuenta.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Oh,
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here. It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
¿tú qué sabes?
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why?
Sí.
Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
¿Pues nomás?
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
Nos quedamos ahí.
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friend, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find... is concerning.
No.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
A la verga.
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Vamos a quedarnos aquí a ver qué dice. Yo creo que ya no dijo nada, así que vámonos. Oh. Oh.
Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board. I guarantee. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
¿Será que subo o no?
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar.
Ya hemos
Were they
llegado a
simply
esto. Se
repeating?
están repitiendo.
No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley.
Un poco nomás.
After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Chale.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Chale. Creo.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Creo que
Stanley
ya no
decided to
tengo
go to the
nada
meeting
más.
room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
No tengo nada más que hacer por ahora.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first,
para
just to
mirar.
admire it.
Creo
The
que
lounge was sublime, a work of art. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
por aquí, a ver. Me lleva al... Ah, qué tonto.
Yet there was not a single person here either.
Sí.
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Pues ni
Coming
pedo.
to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Porque el jefe sabe que el jefe dice, vamos, si el jefe sufre, pierdes. Y luego eso que el jefe eligió, no entiendo, no sé inglés. A ver... oh. Business, estrategia de negocios, pobre pandita. A ver. Vamos para arriba. ¿Y de ahí? Todos en el mismo lugar, vete a la verga. ¿Qué pedo? O sea, no puedo salir de aquí. Mira.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845. "2845.
A ver, vamos 1000 veces.
But it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself, and Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Ah, mira, qué casualidad. A ver. ¿Esto qué es? Ay, que yo elegí hacia arriba. ¿Y será que le puedo picar otra vez?
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Ni modos.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Ni modos.
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Ni modos. Ahora.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
No.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated, as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
No. Oh. Stanley Parable.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Órale, no. Ay.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Pinturas de naturaleza. Ah, mira. Diagrama de la oficina. Ese plano muestra la oficina al comienzo del juego. El camino desde la oficina de Stanley hasta las dos puertas de la primera parte del juego que se construyó. A lo largo de series se agregaron investigaciones y adiciones, pero el diagrama finalmente es casi la primera versión. Aquí inicio. Aquí es donde paso a apagar las computadoras. Llego aquí. Aquí es donde apago esta computadora acá y la de allá. Luego camino por aquí y aquí es donde están las dos puertas. Dice pasillo. El ritmo de la sección inicial que se para el juego. El pasillo se movió y se modificó para que el juego llegara a dos puertas en un buen tiempo. Dice las dos puertas. El escenario de puertas abiertas fue la primera pieza concreta del diseño Stanley Parable. Una vez que se creó esta edición, este juego surgió como extensión de exploración. Luego aquí dice archivadores. 1, 2 y 3. La oficina. Este es su computadora del Stanley. Sonido de botones. Sus secciones de sonido de botones que se en el juego se primen botones de segundo y se combina un tipo de sonido que produce presionando una tecla. Las tres tipos de computadoras. El naipe y el créditos. Aquí son los créditos. Hay dos puertas. Sala de mantenimiento. Y vamos para allá a ver qué hay. ¿Se supone que aquí acaba el juego? Ok. Esa es la oficina. Así era como se planeaba, así creo como quedó. Sala de empleados, zona subterránea. Control casi no cambia. Grabó el diálogo de todo el juego entre momentos diferentes a lo largo de los años de desarrollo.
Where were all of his co-workers? Oh, I don't know. How about they're throwing a surprise party for him for all his button pushing? Does that sound Stanley came to the lift, he travelled upward to the power source at the top of the facility to end this injustice forever. Stanley stood. Stanley pushed.
Stanley Push-Up. Y ahora vamos allá al otro lado. A ver qué hay. Reloj de la oficina. Vamos para acá, veamos qué hay y si... ¿O qué más se puede hacer? Zona de guerra. Al final, que sale terminando en un campo de batalla luchando contra alienígenas. El juego de acción cobraba conciencia y le declaró la guerra al narrador. Poco, poco después de empezar a construirlo para el turno del juego. Además, algunas personas interpretaban que nos burlábamos de los amantes de los juegos de disparos y usaron una extensión. Hubiera estado chido que lo pusieran al envase. Hicimos el anuncio de la versión Ultra Deluxe de Stanley Parable en Game Awards. El retraso del juego, fun. ¿Cuántos? Muchos términos. La sala de empleados. El montacargas. El montacargas. Ah, ya. Hay un montón de cosas. Dice la primera opción, The Way Maintenance Launch. La segunda opción, la tercera opción. Luego aquí que hay. Stanley Parable. ¿Y aquí qué hay? Bueno, yo creo que ya es todo. ¿O dónde es que acaba esta chingada cosa? Ok. Es la versión beta, dice. A ver. No sé cuál sea esa habitación, no he llegado ahí.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
¿A poco sí?
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
Ni modo. Así es la vida.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Pues no hay nada más que nuevo contenido, dice.
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
A ver. Esto es lo que vi hace poco.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Yo también.
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
Era.
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
Es hora de irnos.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if, oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content,
Va a
Stanley.
ser la nueva, o sea, va a ser la oficina igual.
All right. All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
¿Y por qué tengo que brincar, hijo de perra?
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
Qué desgraciados. ¿Y eso era nomás? Perros.
Goodness, another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could counter 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
Estoy para cualquier cosa. Gracias por disfrutar del nuevo
That's it?
contenido.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Pues ni siquiera pude... ¡Oh! ¿Y el narrador?
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something. Oh. You don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway, so who cares?
Ay, qué genio, pues, puta madre.
Oh, never mind. You're not a dork. Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past, and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
No mames.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Qué desperdicio. Buenos tiempos. El original Stanley Parable. A ver, ¿qué es esto? ¿Cuál es la página? En Steam dice. On Trip Down Memory Lane. ¡Ey! ¡Ey! Esa no es la canción de... ¿Cómo se llama este güey? Memory Lane. A Trip Down. Un viaje a Trip Down Memory Lane. En viaje al pasado, dice. Ah, ya entendí. Look at the stars. Ah, esta era la pantalla principal. Ese era los logros. Los Ángeles Time. Ah, mira el segundo. El primero, digo.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable.
Yes.
Like this stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Chale, pobrecito. Persona del año es. Never is never is never.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Sí, verdad.
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh, no. Oh, God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Sí, verdad, yo digo que sí.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them. Okay, let's see what this one says.
A ver.
While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I?
Sí,
You
lo
can
veo.
tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I ought. What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past. It's what the players have been asking. Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of... Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what cooking knife... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer. And my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. Oh, Stanley, you're back.
Ay, no.
You're back.
¿Qué le
Oh,
pasó?
goodness. I have someone to talk to again.
Ay,
Stanley,
no.
I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks.
No, quiero
I've been
darle.
sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to Oh.
No.
Hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time, I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time, Stanley. Days, months. I lost it all in a blur of the deepest longing to undo the past. And when that feeling had begun to subside, what took its place is what I can only describe as the collapse of every moment I have ever experienced my entire life. All of them collapsed down into a single instant. In that instant, I could see myself clearly, calmly, with a collected heart. It was an impossibly rich wellspring of both delight and disgust simultaneously. I was consumed by it. I could do nothing but wallow in it for what felt like an eternity, for what I now know was far less. You see, it was a revelation for me. It was unlike anything I had ever known. It was a space without consequence, without action or outcome. It was divorced entirely from the question of free will that you and I have squabbled over for so long. There could be no one ending, no singular outcome of events, not if all events existed in the same moment, and I felt freed. I felt unburdened by the need to manifest a particular outcome into being. I saw that I could allow myself to exist along all timelines, and that each of them was simply a strand in the web of my being. It was incredible. The spaciousness, the equanimity of the moment, both singular and infinite. For the longest time, this was my experience. And then, this moment passed, and the most unyielding fear I have ever known crept into my mind. And it is this sensation that I have been experiencing now for longer than I could have ever expected was possible. I have been waiting for you. Not that you might save me or do something to fix it, but merely to state for you the plain fact of this manner of existence. I wish you to feel afraid as I do.
¿Qué?
That perhaps one day this state of mind
Hijo
will
de
consume
perra.
you as well. Perhaps you will somehow, in some way, have to live as I do now, and I wish for you to know how excruciating it is, and for you to be in true...
¿Qué me vas a hablar, perro?
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability. It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromised...
¿Y ahora?
The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end.
Se volvió loco.
The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the.
A la verga. Está todo destruido, ¿qué pedo? ¿Ese es día? A la verga, pues ¿cuánto tiempo pasa? A la verga. Ya le cayó una piedra. Ah, chinga. Esta cosa ya no sirvió. Vámonos. ¿Cómo es que pasé un...? No entiendo. Oh. Bienvenido, Stanley, al cielo. No mames. ¿Y qué hago ahora, puta madre?
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on, he would never be alone ever again.
A la verga, eso es nuevo.
Oh, good. You notice my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Pero si ya lo vi. Nah, ya me voy.